coming out to, of course, Mark Sheppard here. Let's give it up for Mark Sheppard again, everyone. Yeah!
I can see those of you who have friends and those who don't, because you're sitting apart. So, what do you want to know?
So actually, and just so you know, guys, we have microphones down here for Q&A a little bit later on. But I actually just wanted to Maria von Trapp this thing and start at the very beginning.
Maria von Trapp?
Yeah, I thought somebody in there might.
We're in Switzerland during the time of Nazi Germany. What the hell's going on? Sounds like a Doom Patrol plot.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. But in reading up on you, I did not know that professional musician at the age of 15.
Yeah, I was a professional musician at 15. I was making records at 15, so that was fun.
Like, so what like first like made you like get into music? Was it something from a very, very young age that you learned?
Yeah, about 12 years old. My dad shared a house with somebody whose sons were both musicians, and I wanted to play drums like one of the guys. So I ended up buying a drum kit off him and learning how to play it at 12, 13 years old. Started making records at 15, making records till all the way up through late 80s. And then took a break, got sober, took a break, and came back to it bizarrely. And then went out and played on tour with certain artists that I played in the very early 80s with. And yeah, it was kind of fun. Like a weird thing to do, but it's one of my happy things to do.
Absolutely.
So I like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and the drums, like, so I play a few instruments, but I've never been able to pick up the drums because there's just so much happening all around. Did you pick it up pretty fast, or?
I don't know. I mean, it's what I do.
Yeah.
Hey, Ashley.
Hi, Mark.
She plays drums too.
Hey, there we go.
But no, it's just, it's what I wanted to do, and it's what I did. So I made a lot of records in the 80s, a lot of records. I was signed to Rough Trade in England back in the day, and signed a Virgin, all sorts of record labels. Kind of fun, kind of a thing to do. Seems like so long ago.
Oh, I love that voice.
But yeah, I'm happy places definitely playing. So, well, that's exhausted your questions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I am curious. How did that lead you to acting? How did you go from music into the acting profession?
We were trying to find somebody for a movie, and my dad's an actor. Was an actor. My dad's been in several casts of Star Trek. He was in Who with me. He was in a whole bunch of stuff. Was I really that boring, guys? Women says, "Hey."
Yeah.
But they tried to put me in a film, and it didn't end up working out. So I was like, "I'm not doing this." And then years later, they couldn't find somebody to do a play. And it was a big deal, so I ended up doing that. And then I did. And they were like, people came to the play and were like, "Oh, do you have a SAG card?" I'm like, "Do I need one?" They're like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay." So I got put in Silk Stockings with this amazing casting director called Barbara Clayman, who used to talk like that. "Darling, do you have a SAG card?" So yeah, so I was Taft-Hartley'd into the union, and then I went back to see the people who I hadn't worked with when I was much younger, and they were like, "Okay, well," and I ended up in this film called In the Name of the Father, and that's what kicked everything off. And then I came back to the States and did X-Files, and since then I've been killing people on American television.
I did notice that.
Quite professionally for many, many years.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun though. I enjoy it.
You do have a lot of killers on your TV resume.
Yeah,
there.
it's, killing is in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
It really is.
Well, and you mentioned your father there. I was fascinated that, I think 3 or 4 times, your father has actually played an older version of a character you've played.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that?
Well, the Who one was the easiest. They called me up and
Yes.
said, "So when are you coming over to do the prosthetics?" I'm like, "Why don't you just ask my dad to do it?"
Right.
And they're like, "Would he do it?" I'm like, "Of course he'd do it." So I called him and said, "You're doing Doctor Who?" Oh, he's like, "Is it all bits of cardboard and string still?" I'm like, "No, it's really good." So I gave him basically fish fingers and custards forward to watch, see what Matt Smith was like. He's like, "Oh, this boy's beautiful. He's amazing." So it just became this thing that we had to do. But of course, weirdly, the stuff that we shot in America was the stuff that he did. So we did that at Lake Powell. And it's technically non-union to shoot that there. So I'm shooting in England at BBC, and he's shooting in Nevada, or Nevada, whatever the area is at. And he had to ask the unions, like, can I get a waiver to... Okay, you want a waiver? Yeah. Well, because you've always wanted to do this. Yes, okay, fine, I'll do it. But he loved it. He absolutely adored it. He thought it was the most funny he ever had. So, yeah, and I directed him and stuff, and we played the same character. We did NCIS together. We did really weird NCIS together. There's been a bunch of times we were supposed to do things together. But he's no longer with us, but he died when he was 86. And he worked till he was 85, so it really doesn't suck.
Wow.
So, he's in... 4 casts of Star Trek, Next Generation, Voyager, Star Trek 6, JJ Star Trek. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. He was in Babylon 5, he was in so many interesting things. But he's in Gettysburg. He also narrates Gettysburg.
The movie Gettysburg, yeah. Wow.
Angles and Generals as well. So, yeah, well, I'm bored of the sound of your voice, so let's hear them.
Yeah.
Anyone got a question?
Anybody got some questions? You want to come on up to the mics here?
I'm coming.
There we go.
You could have sat down, I could have heard you from there.
Hi!
Well, it's a bit too exciting.
Welcome to St. Louis. Okay, when you were playing Sterling on Leverage, how much trouble did Christian Kane give you every single episode you were in?
Christian Kane never gave me any trouble at all. He's a lovely guy. He's a really good chef.
Really?
Yeah, he's a great chef, so eating was half the fun. But there's a very famous fight in Leverage between Sterling and Elliot. And that all came about because my oldest child, everyone was over at my house watching Battlestar or watching something together. And my son said to Amy Berg, who was writing, why don't you have a fight between Sterling and Elliot? Because Sterling never loses and Elliot never loses technically, right?
Right.
So it was an interesting thing. We did that fight, amazing fight. And in the first take of that fight, was still done as one single Steadicam shot, which is really, really cool. He put me through a bar table, literally flipped me, and I went through the table, and the table flipped up on its side, big round oak bar table. It flipped up on its side. He managed to stop the table hitting me in the face, which was really cool. And everybody stopped, like, you okay? Okay, it's like, we're doing fine. We just continued the fight. But so the one you see is the second take of that. And then they digit in my tooth falling out, which you see, which is really funny. So he punches me. It's with numbers in it. It was kind of fun. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to do.
Right.
See if they ever bring me back on that show.
I want them to bring me back. I hinted to Dean, you need to bring back Sterling regardless.
Dean
if
actually
Ford
reads-
is there, it doesn't matter.
Dean reads his Twitter feed, so if you just
Yeah,
keep
I know.
throwing stuff at Dean Devlin, he will eventually go, fine. I think John Rogers was like, you can't be in everything all the time, Mark. I'm like, well, I'm trying. But thank you. Hey, you.
What is something that you do on your free time?
Say again?
What is something that you do on your free time?
Ooh. What do you do in your free time?
Play video games or go
Yeah,
outside?
yeah, it's pretty much like me, but I smoke cigars, watch football, real football, not throwball. How many teams you got here? Okay, moving on. Seriously, the Rams?
That is a sour point around here.
Rams? We didn't even want them in California.
Oh.
That was the Anaheim Rams. That was like, it's not even LA, so it's like, who cares? But what do I do in my free time? Yeah, I have friends over, cook and eat and play. I ride a lot of motorcycles. I have a lot of motorcycles. So, a nice collection of Ducatis and fun things that go very, very fast, like crazy fast. I have a V4 Superleggera, new Ducati V4 Superleggera, which is 234 horsepower, weighs about 350 pounds. So that thing will do about 220 miles an hour. It's kind of fun. But I have an airbag suit and, you know, proper gear and stuff, so I don't die. Yeah, you know, I love to play music, I love to, a lot of things I like to do, but yeah. You playing video games? My number one video game? Ones I'm in are pretty cool. I was in the last incarnation of Modern Warfare, so I play a character called Knight. So you can play as me with my bird and my 2 axes. It's kind of cool.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry.
Sorry.
What's your favorite, like?
Like?
I say it a lot.
Done.
It's hard to break.
You just did.
Yeah. What's your favorite behind the scenes or blooper, like, over the years, what's your favorite moment that you can remember that you wished was, like, seen by everyone, but it's just, like, not?
Most of what we've done has been seen by everyone. Unless it's really foul and offensive, in which case we didn't do that. But my favorite parts of, if you're talking about Supernatural generally?
They're mainly Supernatural,
Yeah,
but,
well,
like, over the years, any?
Well, pretty much, you know, we work very, very hard on Supernatural, so we play very hard on Supernatural. And whether you believe it or not, they're all quite bright. Even Misha. Environment, trust me, he builds hospitals and schools and he changes the world one step at a time. I slag him mercilessly, but it's an interesting thing because the bloopers, we had our own version of the bloopers, so we can put the stuff that's rude in there. And we always see that first, and then you get the nice sort of slightly polite version of it to get to see. But there was a line that Jensen had. Jensen, you know, comes from doing soap opera and handling large amounts of dialogue for a long time. And he's really good at it. But if you make a mistake on our set, we will grind you into dust. And he is no exception. I'd rather be slapped in the face during sex by a girl in a Zorro mask seemed to be a line that he could not get to come out of his mouth. Well, certainly not after the first time. Because as soon as he messed it up the first time, Joe was like, "Excuse me?" And I think there's more than 30 takes. Literally, because it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And the more he thought about it, and the more it just got terrible. And he never fluffs his lines. But you know, that's the fun part of it. We use that as our own gag reel, just use take after take of that, with other stuff in between. It was just like, oh my God. But if you really want to know what it was like, and where we're funny, and what we're funny about, and what we're really like together, we used to go do San Diego Comic-Con every year, right? So you got thousands of people waiting in line, you know, Misha buys them pizza, and then we go say hi to everybody before they go. And we'd be the first big panel every year. I did 8 years. We did, you know, it was 8 years of those panels that was fun. But the purpose of us being in San Diego is not just the Hall H story so far and what we, you know, because we're about 3 episodes in by the time we go to San Diego. But we actually have the directive from Warner Brothers and from our producers as to what we're talking about for the year, right? So all the press that you see, all the photos that you see, all the weird photos of me and Misha come from the fact that Misha and I have to go a day before the boys and do probably 150 interviews during the day to every outlet there is. So when you know, new season, you know, well, season 8, what's this about? So we get to tell you what it's about, what we're not allowed to talk about. Don't reveal this, don't do this, do talk about this. And we used to get, after about 5 years of doing that, you get pretty bored. I mean, it's just, you get to a point where it's by rote, but you're trying to make it interesting. So there's a lot of fun things that came out of that. CW asking us, we once got the Vampire Diaries questions by accident. So we answered them.
Yeah, you answered
You could not put that on television. And then, you know, it's like, in 5 words, you know, describe your other character. And I dropped a bunch of weight and I was really fit. And Misha made the mistake of going first. So he was like, svelte, erudite. He was, I don't know, he was being poncy about whatever. words he was using about me, which gave me just enough time to go, baby in a trench coat. That was what our lives are like. And so, you know, we loved it, and we loved doing it, and the boys would come in the next day and they'd do some stuff. But Misha and I, that's why you always see the piggyback pictures of he and I and stuff, because we're literally bored out of our minds. But we have a job to do, so we spend our time being very, very careful and very, very smart about how we tell what the story is likely to be, and, you know, what we think about. So we do, you know, we do our work, we work our asses off for 12 hours, and then at the end of that Sunday morning deal, I can neither confirm or deny that the guys drink. I don't drink, I'm 32 years sober. But there is a... I wouldn't call that, the alternatives really suck, trust me. But, you know, it's time to relax, so the boys can get a little bit of relaxing in, and talking to people we need to talk to, and saying hi to our friends who have also got shows. And then we go across the road, and we would go to Nerd HQ. Nerd HQ originally run just by Zach Levi, and then Aisha Tyler was doing it as well. If you want to see what we're really like, watch those panels. They're on YouTube. It is, I think it's kind of the best of us. It's where we're the most comfortable, and we've done our work for the year as far as press is concerned, like big, you know, non-stop, every, you know, 12 people interviewing us at the same time, to big interviews with, you know, EW or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But those ones are hysterical, and that's when they're making fun of me and doing impressions of me as a pirate.
Yeah.
You know, and we just get into joke, and the rule is whoever's funny carries the ball, and that's the way it goes. But if you watch those Nerd HQ panels, then you'll get a very good sense of what we're actually like with each other as well, which is kind of cool. I like that.
Thank you.
Welcome. What do you want?
A little bit of your time.
I don't know, we'll see.
So I'm gonna try to not have a total panic attack. For one.
Well, that's not going to work. Make it worse.
So me and my mom are huge fans. Huge. She wasn't able to make it today, so I was wondering if you'd be able to like say hi.
Hi. Hi, Mom. You're doing a good job so far. What's the question?
Question. I need to know if your trailer is still covered in Castile pictures.
I felt so bad for him, is that there were so many people who didn't buy Castile calendars. That's the only thing that went through my mind. So it wasn't actually him, because I don't think he had the guts to do it. And they didn't play pranks on me, because I'm an adult. And I'll sue. But I know, Jared wrote something about penises or something on the back of my car, and I was like, if that scratched my paint, it's going to cost you $6,000. So I'm not the guy. But Misha would always take the bait, so they always picked on Misha every day, all the time. Miserable existence for him. But he'd always rise to the bait. It was just really sad. So I think it was, yeah, it was Ruth and my brain is gone. Who did it? Can't remember who did it. No. No, it was an Abaddon Rowena collaboration. Yes, that's what it was. So those two butt heads were like grinning ear to ear, like school children. So I walked into my trailer and there was literally at least 500, you know, square pictures of Amisha, the same picture. I used to have my Facebook for a while, just the panorama. But they put them everywhere. I mean, and I was like, great, somebody's gonna clean this up. Just like, no, they thought I'd like lose my mind. I was like, why would I lose my mind? I kept the one that was inside the lid of the toilet. But it was funny, about 6 months later, I actually opened my microwave, because I had no reason to open my microwave. I opened it and there was one in there as well.
Have you ever found that one?
What?
I was wondering if you ever found the one.
I did find it. I did find it in the microwave, but I don't use the microwave, so it's just not. It's like they were giggling like idiots. I'm like, okay, kind of funny. It had no effect on me. So, then, yeah, somebody's gonna clean this up.
Well,
Yeah,
tiny,
it's- what?
random little question.
What?
It's really silly. What is your favorite food?
Favorite what?
Food.
It's such a limited question. I like lots of food. I love food. Food's a wonderful thing. The fact that I can actually eat it when I want to is also a major thing. A lot of people can't. You know, there was a time in my life when I couldn't, but
Okay, so I love Supernatural and I love Crowley. So I was wondering, two things. Who came up with Moose for Sam on the cell phone? If it was you or if it was
That wasn't a cell phone.
Like,
It didn't happen on a cell phone, it happened in a scene.
oh, okay, so.
Not Moose happened on a cell phone.
And then, what is your favorite scene as Crowley?
End of season 8, that's easy. Sarah Gamble had taken over season 6, and ultimately season 7, which would have been a great season 12, but it wasn't a great season 7. Not her fault at all. She actually took a dead story and turned the ship around and made an amazing. Yeah, I mean, season 6 got some of the best standalone episodes in it, etc., etc., etc. French Mistake, all that stuff's in there. So a lot of fun. Weekend at Bobby's. But they've been giving me insults to Jared for since the previous season. So Gigantor, mop-headed lumberjack, giraffe. I mean, it's just nothing really stuck. And the point about Jared is Jared has a ridiculously large amount of upper body strength. He flips 400-pound tractor tires all day. I see Cliff flipping tractor tires. Jared can flip the same tires all day. I think he has legs like a chicken. Don't say that to him. I don't know how much he's got. I mean, a lot of muscle, but he's not got like manly tree trunk legs. So you do realise he's 6'5", right? And he lies about his height. So I'm not a little person on that, but I am on that show. 6'2", 6'5", and 6'1". Misha's close to 6'1". So, oh my God, so he is a moose. I mean, it's this body with these sticks underneath. You know, moose is designed to destroy people in cars. You know, you drive at it, the legs give way, and that 2.5 tons goes through your window. I can see you. I can still see you. I can still see you.
And he's coming up for her.
Did you see the Abominable?
Yeah.
So those little snakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so was I saying something
Stick for
interesting?
legs.
What? Oh,
Stick for
legs. So yeah, so moose is obvious. So moose is, and the great thing about moose comes from this great line when I'm in the burnt out mansion. And I literally just look at Dean and go, "Where's your moose?" And he goes, "Oh, he went to blah, blah, blah." It's like it's automatic. It's like it's always made sense and it's always supposed to be there. And when you get moose, you get squirrel, and you get Boris and Natasha, or whatever you want to do. So, and then in the scene where I'm dating Jodie Mills in a blind date, where you all know who I am, she has no idea who I am. And this terrible date that they set up, which is so funny. With my red tie. I think I had a red tie on or something. And it was just so on a set, when a phone rings, you don't hear a phone ring. Somebody goes, ring, ring, and you can hear somebody say, ring, ring, and you go, I thought it'd be really clever to say, this is the king, because I thought it was funny, and that was the sort of tone of this. I went, oh, look, this is the king. So I looked at the phone, but you have something called an insert shot, which is usually done later, where somebody's hand holding a phone very close, and you see that. That wasn't shot with me, that was shot with somebody else. And the ring was put in afterwards. So when I got to see it, first of all, post-production had put in as my ringtone, I like big butts in a gang. And of course I'm ignoring it, because I never heard that. But you guys hear it as though I hear it all the time. It says, I like big look down. And they put an insert shot of not moose, which I thought was brilliant, because that didn't actually exist when we were shooting it. So that's post-production, inventing silly things to cause trouble with. So they, and Jared's going to be stuck with Moose for the rest of his life. I just think it's lovely. I think he embraces it a lot more than he did at the beginning. Which makes him sound like a moose.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm a big fan of you and a lot of stuff, and so I was just wondering which actor you were maybe the most like starstruck to work with, or that was just the biggest deal to you when you landed that part. You're like, whoa, that's a huge actor I'm going to be working with.
I don't think I work like that. I mean, with all due respect to some amazing actors that I work with. Work with Daniel Day-Lewis, I work with, you know, Baldwin, James Caan, all sorts of people I've worked with over the years, and obviously Timothy Dalton, amazing. Michelle Gomez, who's extraordinary. You know, by proxy, Brendan Fraser and Matt Bowen, I've worked with off and on for years. There's so many good actors out there, and I love the boys as well. They're fun to play with, you know. It's like, but I don't work like that. It's not. I don't have a job. It's not a job. I'm telling a story, and the story has nothing to do with somebody being starstruck by the other person. Not usually. It may do, but it's rare. So I don't really think that figures into anything. I mean, my job is to be the most interesting thing on the screen. I can still see you. You actually bring more attention to yourself by doing that. Yeah, no, whatever. You guys have no friends at all. Robbing the place. You slept there overnight, didn't you? Yeah. But yeah, it's a different thing for me. It's not. I mean, it's weird. Like you meet me, and you know, 50% of you go nuts and get all gooey and weird, and then if you talk to me for more than a minute, I'm a dad and I'm a concerned individual and a proud American and all sorts of fun things that you don't think about. And I just have a really kind of cool job that I get to tell stories. It's like it's a fun thing to do, but you know, I don't get bothered in it because Crowley's pretty scary. It's very different. I don't get like a lot of what we would call crazy people. Not what they call us crazy people, because that's different. But what they actually, you know, people in difficulty don't tend to want to, you know, firebomb my house or do those sort of things. It's like I just don't have that kind of connection with an audience that's like that. It's usually really, really positive and wonderful. And it's the same way with actors. You're like, you just really want to do it. And I've been doing this a long time. You know, I'll be 58 in a couple of weeks, and I'm going, oh my God, I've been doing this for years. And I'm very happy to do it, but you know, sometimes people are excited when I walk on a set, so it's kind of fun. But I'm starting to really enjoy what I'm doing a lot. What do you want?
So, I'm a big fan of you in Doctor Who as Dalton Galloway III.
It's who?
Dalton Galloway III.
No. Canton Everett Delaware III. Close.
Did you have any like improv lines that went into the Doctor Who?
I'm trying to think. It's remarkably well written. So I don't think the lines were the stuff that you move around. I think all the intentions and the interactions and there was a bit that's not in it that we tried to do with the silence and me leaving that sort of room in the middle of Area 51 where I walk out, and we were working out what to do there. But I don't think it's the yes he is at the end. That's all very much in what Stephen was doing. But I was offered that role. That wasn't something I auditioned for. And I think when you have good writing, and I've been lucky enough to have a lot of good writing, there's a lot more about finding your way to do that as opposed to trying to change things for the sake of changing things. When you're on a series for 8 years or 5 years or whatever, then there's a little bit more scope to move things around. Like in Doom Patrol, the writing is absolutely extraordinary. If you haven't seen Doom Patrol, you're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah, see that show.
It's ridiculously good. Brendan Fraser, Matt Bomer, Timothy Dalton, Diane Guerrero, April Bowlby, Jovan Wade, Michelle Gomez, Tudix in the first season. A bunch of supernatural actors peppered in and out in places, which is great. But there's areas in there, knowing the writers really well, there's areas of vernacular and things, that phrases that are worth changing or moving around without changing the intentions of scenes and stuff. But you have to give good writers credit. They are creating a world that you're trying to build using their words. It's not about, well, I would say this. It's a bit pompous, especially if you're playing Constantine. I don't really have a frame of reference to what would Constantine say. But the feeling that you have a team behind you that actually cares, and if you have a concern about a line or a sticky or whatever, it can be changed, it can be done and changed. It needs to be agreed upon because it can have effects on other things. So it's kind of fun that way. What do you want?
I thought I was on a step. I am just a huge fan of tattoos, and I admire the artwork in your sleeve.
I hate tattoos.
I wanted to know what was your first tattoo and did it have a meaning behind it?
1980, I got a small dragon on my shoulder, and then I have a 80-81, I have a bigger dragon on my right arm, which has been there for whatever it is, 40.
Did it have a special
2 years.
meaning, or did
I
you
was
just
born the year of the
just
dragon.
like, oh, you're the dragon.
So that, and then I didn't get tattooed for a really long time. And Jill Jordan did a dragon on this side years ago. And then, it's just like my tattoos sort of started up here. And they were always, I was tattooed at the time, and being tattooed was not necessarily a cool thing to be. Before people started having tribal tattoos and Bart Simpson tattoos and stuff. So, the artist that worked on me last kind of disappeared. She disappeared for a while. And if she wasn't going to do it, I wasn't particularly interested in getting tattooed. It never really crossed my mind. And then a tattoo artist who I knew, who had dated the same person as I dated years and years and years, decades ago. He always had sleeves. He was from Detroit, great guitar player, and a beautiful traditional Japanese work artist. And I found him, and I was like, you want to do a sleeve? Everyone that says they want to do a sleeve, I'm like, go look up what I've been doing. Trust me, I can do a sleeve. And we didn't really know each other 35 years ago as well, 30 years ago as well. But we are very, very close because we have a lot of the same experiences. We're in bands at the same time, we have a lot of the same friends. And it's just been a really interesting, cathartic thing. And I think 3.5 months he did the entire of this sleeve, which, oh God's sakes, it goes on forever. And we just got to a point a couple of weeks ago where we started on this side, so it's going to be full across both. So I don't have a Bart Simpson tattoo on my ankle or anything like that. So it's just, they're mine. But I was like, they're going to stop me acting at 58? I don't think so. So get to a point, I might as well do it now as do it any other time. Yeah, pleasure. What?
Just curious.
Okay.
How many times have you had to re-download the photo of you and Jim?
Oh, scores of times. Poor man. Fought in Vietnam, and on some of the best shows ever made. He's going to be remembered for kissing me. Yes, I have it in my pocket. I have the original and the 2 photos beforehand. He hates it. He absolutely hates it. I mean, it's a late release. It was no big deal for him, but it became such a big deal before it happened, and they wound him up. They also rolled camera, 3 different cameras, photographed it from every angle. It drove him absolutely potty. I mean, kissing him, he's got lovely soft lips. Try it sometime.
And also, you had a chance to play a character, who is something that you would love a chance to play?
I never say that because you never know whether I'm going to do it or not. So It's always a nice surprise. But I never do. Hey. I like that sound actually. That sound makes me happy.
What is the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you while on set?
I don't know. Really, I don't know if I get that embarrassed that easily.
Or like really funny, like what's the funniest thing?
Funniest thing? There's a few of those, most of them are on the blooper reels. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot. It's just imagine you're all in a boat together and you're all bailing it out as fast as you can. You know, that's kind of the thing. You're trying to make something happen, and funny things do happen. But it's all about keeping the ball in the air. I mean, they're all out there. Everything that ever happened on Supernatural is funny. But yeah, a few high spots, but nothing really terrible.
I'm actually going to take this up to Julie real quick. Give me 1 second.
Can I yell it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that works.
I hear you down there. When you first got Crowley as a role, how did you perceive him? What were your ideas of what was behind his motivations? Were you playing him as being great with the boys, or he was being duplicitous? And what did you see as like his qualities that you were understanding?
Interesting question, and not easy to answer. It could take a couple of days. I was never absolutely certain he was a demon. Could have been an angel, could have been God. A lot of different points. Didn't really matter. Didn't really matter at all. Just a guy trying to, you know, I think the whole thing was, if everybody just listened to him, the world would have been a much, much better place. That's kind of the tone that was in there. It was just massively frustrating all the time that nobody would do. And I once wrote something to Jeremy Carver, who's my current boss on Doom Patrol, and I said, you do realise I'm going to play this as though I knew what the outcome was anyway. You do know that, you know, I'm never going to play it as though I've been taken by surprise by a circumstance. He goes, yeah, we know that. That's what you always do. So it became a sort of part of the contention. As the deeper you threw me under a bus, the more I'd actually planned it or knew it was going to happen. So that was always fun to do. I enjoyed that in that context. Good question.
Great question.
What do you want? What do you want? When do you want it?
How did you feel about the ending of
You just
Supernatural?
ignored me completely. So I'll ignore you. I didn't see the ending of Supernatural.
So did you ever play a character that you got into and you were hoping that they would actually extend the character much further into, but then it was like a shorter part?
No, I pretty much wear out every character I'm ever in. I mean, you come in for one episode and I'm there for 8 years, so I can't really complain about that. But yeah, it's an odd thing. I guess I'm the guy they bring in to create some interest in things at certain points of series, and that can go on for a while or not for a while or whatever. I mean, Battlestar, who could have continued, I guess, but it was just, you know, with the changing regimes and stuff. If Moffat had continued, I probably would have come back at some point. But yeah, there's a lot of those.
Well, and also with Crowley's character, I know a lot of times actors will read scripts and have an idea of how they think the character is going to be brought on screen. When you read the script and then you started actually...
Oh, I knew how the character was going to be brought on
Well,
screen.
yeah. Now,
it was right there.
Now, with the director directing it the way, was there ever a time where you were like, okay, like you got into like one season of it and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to want to play this beyond this, but then it got such a big response from the fans and it grew to be such a great character that you're like,
I've never
cared.
I've never cared what the fans thought about in the context of how I do my job. I'm honoured and amazed by the fact that what I tend to enjoy, you guys tend to enjoy, which I think is the best part of it. But it's not a popularity contest. It's a story to tell and a character to tell through a story. And I'm not in charge of all of that. But those bits that I am in charge of, I definitely take charge of. So, you know, I have some very distinct, there's some really obvious ones, like, it never made any sense to me that Rowena was my mother. It doesn't make any sense in the canon, doesn't make any sense for any of that stuff. That's fine. She did an incredible job doing that. And she's a fabulous actress, and she wholeheartedly committed to it. But just imagine what would have happened if she'd been playing my ex-wife. That would have been extraordinary. But being the Mary Winchester thing and the whole mother's thing and the whole thing, I just think it was a tiny, tiny bit of an odd lapse to create something that was that obvious when the character couldn't possibly have had a mother because he's not Fergus MacLeod.
Right.
Fergus MacLeod is a long time ago and something else. It doesn't make sense. You can't, this is your mother. It's not my mother. I'm Crowley. It's a demonized version. It's got nothing to do with it. And the idea that somewhere bagpipes are playing in the back of my head and I'm really 4 for 3 and ginger, it really doesn't work for me. But that's okay. I mean, you just go with whatever you go with. So my thought is, well, everybody else has a mother. Why can't I?
Now you said Fergus, but don't you mean Fargus?
No, I don't. Because that would be a really twatty accent. I mean, it always annoyed me. It always annoyed me that it was an incredibly limiting concept, and it also screwed up Mesopotamia. It screwed up any of the rules at that point that we created. And it was like, but it became intriguing because of the way she played it and the way I played it, which really, it wasn't a longing for a mother figure, it was just more annoyed by the fact that she was a lousy mother. Does that make sense? It was like, that was the sort of thing. But there's a lot of things they did. It was on television, for God's sakes. Like, you couldn't run Dean and Dean for a season. It would have been brilliant, but you couldn't do it because it would panic a huge amount of people. It's like, so he's a bad guy, how do you redeem that, etc. But it would have been, I think the fans would have loved it. But, this is all hindsight. This is all post facto. We did the best that we could, We tried to make it as good as we could possibly make it. And everybody was involved in that endeavor.
This is a hypothetical. X-Files had a few of the Monster of the Week episodes where they brought the characters back. If Bob/Cecil came back, what would you have liked to have seen?
Don't care. Genuinely don't care. I don't mind fanfic. That's your job. You know what I'm saying? It's like the want and desire for things to happen is absolutely irrelevant to the way that I play a character. What Crowley wants and desires is interesting, but there's no bearing on that question, if you understand what I'm saying. My wants and desires, apart from, I've been happier not to do season 12 and playing the same scene over and over again. It would have been a little bit more interesting. And it was just, it's an odd thing, but the fact that that's for you guys to play with. Does that make sense? I've just got Crowley. The rest of it's up to you.
Oh, I was talking about from the X-Files.
Oh, X-Files. I didn't hear you.
X-Files.
Well, you got to talk into a microphone.
X-Files, where you were in there for the one episode, you were really creepy.
Yeah.
And
Chris Carter wrote
you
it.
survived.
Yeah, Chris Carter wrote it and could never work out how to bring me back because I would be too dangerous. I think the logic would be, I'm pretty sure that's what he said, was how do you bring back somebody who at this point now cannot be destroyed? It doesn't make sense. And at that time in the X-Files, so I thought you were talking about Supernatural. Thank God a question that's not about Supernatural. I'm joking, I love it. But that is interesting, and Chris wrote that episode, and it wasn't even a series when we did that episode. They hadn't even got a full series. And he wrote that. And I was like, oh, they'll bring him back. You can't bring him back. What do you do with him? You've got to lock him up forever, You can't, what's he going to do, escape? It becomes a whole other thing other than X-Files. It becomes a different story. But it was fun to do.
Hi again. Do you think of
I don't think.
Okay. Well, do you think that any of this? It's kind of hard to word a question. Think. How about singular thought? Do you think any of the supernatural
Just say it faster and you think I won't hear you.
I don't know how to phrase a question without saying the word think.
That's an English level, question. That's what it is. You've got to think of something.
Indeed.
What about it?
Supernatural. Would you and like the other characters ever think of playing D&D just like in your free time or something, but like framing around?
My buddy John Rogers writes a lot of D&D books, and yeah, it's just not my thing. It's just, weirdly, it's not my thing. It makes sense to me, it's actually be a lot of fun, but that's one of the, to fit that in with one of the other 800 things that I do, amongst playing video games and smoking cigars and hanging out. I don't actually have enough time to devote myself to that. So I have other versions of the same thing. I create characters that people put into D&D, so think about it that way.
Do you at least have fun through them, of them telling you?
I always have fun. Never imply that it's not fun.
Well, you never know. Someone can tell a story and you just don't think they're playing the character right, so you say,
I kind of do it differently. There's usually a camera on me when I'm doing it, so.
That's true.
So it's a bit different. If there's cameras on you when you're playing D&D, it can get quite funny.
That's true.
One of the first things I saw you in was Firefly. I was wondering if that continued. Do you think you would have loved to stay in the series?
Well, yeah, that was the plan. The reason why he didn't put me in Serenity is because he killed off all the helpers.
Yeah.
So he created the twins and all that weird stuff so he could kill them. He didn't want to kill. The reason why he didn't want to kill Badger is because he wrote Badger for himself. And apparently they don't think Josh is a good enough actor to play it. So he's like, really? You're directing it? You wrote it? He's like, no, I don't think you're acting. When I first met him, he had like a beard, really strange. And I was like, and Baldwin said to me, he goes, he wrote it for himself. I'm like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. And like, who knows? They'll reboot it at some point. It will. They have to. I don't.
So many roles outside of Supernatural and the Doctor. What were some of your favorite roles and why?
Pretty much every role that you guys have liked, I've liked. It's weird. It's that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird way to say it, but the stuff that people have enjoyed that I've done and I've been lucky enough to do is the ones that I've enjoyed doing the most. Does that make sense? It's a weird thing. It's a love thing.
Absolutely. Well, I think that part of what makes Crowley so great, so lasting, is like his very first appearance on the show. It comes at the end of this very big arc in season 5, and you cut such a figure in that episode. It really is quite amazing because we're so engrossed in how this story is going to resolve. And then here comes this new character we've never met. And I don't know about everybody else in here, but I was just like, I want to see more of this guy, like immediately.
Well, that's what happened. 8 years later, I left. But the joke of that was, as I'm watching Lenny Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will, is I was told that I'd be listening to Norwegian death metal while watching that. And instead I'm listening to Aaron Neville doing Everybody Plays the
Yeah.
Just the most bizarre contraindication of what I'm actually reacting to. But yeah, a lot of fun. And I mean, who knows how it was. I think they tried to kill me off a whole bunch of times and never got around to it. I think when Andrew came in, it was his mission to try to kill me. So, he did what he did, but I was done when I was done. I'm happy to do it. Now go watch Doom Patrol and see what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
For real, I will give the full thing right there. Too. Doom
Ridiculous.
Patrol is amazing, guys.
Who
You need to
here
watch
has
it.
seen Doom Patrol?
Give some hands, give some
It's
hands.
pathetic.
Yeah.
It's pathetic.
That needs to be everyone. That show is incredible.
Go watch the pilot. You'll be like, we've got Nazi puppets. Entire town displays up the arse of a donkey in the same.
The dog. I mean.
The dog?
Yeah, the recreation.
Oh, the pug?
Yeah, the pug.
The recreator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything.
There's a story about that I'll tell one day, which is really funny.
There you go.
Not about the dog though. But it is an extraordinary show. It is a ridiculous. Not one season has been the same length. The first year was 15. The second year was 9. It's a police siren. Hi. Exercise those lines. but first year's 15, second season's 9, third season's 10, and the fourth season I think is 12. It's very, you can't binge it. It's impossible to binge. It has got too much stuff going on. It's a very weird thing. Monsieur Mala, Gargowax, for God's sake. Gargowax is like the coolest. Billy Boyd playing his sidekick. I mean, there's extraordinary actors in this, and it's heartbreaking and sad and funny and weird. And it's not Supergirl, and it's not The Boys. It's not anything. It's to do with mental health, is what I think it's really about. So there's a lot of cursing in it too. Which is great.
Yeah.
All right, well, unfortunately, I think that is all the time that we have
Fine.
for today, everyone.
Well, thank you guys.
Give it up once again.